making the decisions. They've never had family members in that situation, so they don't care. They're basing all their things on their theories that
Right.
clearly don't work in reality, and it's not making
No.
patients safer, and it's certainly not helping them.
Right. And that was, day 1 through 60, it made sense. It made sense for the first 60 days.
Yeah.
Once we got after that and we realized that there was no keeping this out of the facilities, why are we at 7 months come the 9th of October?
Yeah.
Even with the changes that other states are making and opening doors a little bit, like I said, it's not, and we don't want the doors open wide. We want it safely done, but it's not enough. They're violating rights. And, I guess one of our concerns and what I really want to push today more and get everyone on this page is they are violating human rights. Until somebody gets a judgment out of the OCR saying, no, you can't do this, it could happen again tomorrow if it stopped today. We'll kind of go back now that I think everyone's here. So obviously I'm Carrie. I think everybody in here knows who I am, unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know. So we'll start with Fran, go around real quickly, and then we'll go back.
Hi, I'm Fran. I'm working on compiling all of the information as y'all share it. So I'm going to give my little plug here. I'm posting into the chat the Google form, our contact information. If you haven't filled it out, if you could please fill that out, that would be super awesome. This information is kept private. We're just using it so that we can disseminate information to you as rapidly as possible as we receive it.
Yeah, this is Tammy. I have a mother and mother-in-law in a long-term care facility in Springfield, and I've joined this group for the same purpose as everybody else, just to be able to see them.
Jill?
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're okay.
This is my first time. So I'm a pretty new member, and
Welcome.
the facility where my mom is pretty generous about visits, but my mother doesn't cooperate. And I found you guys a few weeks ago, and it was, I knew there must be a group out there, but I was going crazy. So I want to get involved and, do whatever I can to, I've talked to all the people there. I mean, they just don't have any authority to, do anything until the state guidelines or whoever they're following are changed. So as far as I'm concerned, that's the direction to put my efforts in at this point.
We're going to go to Julie and let you try to fix it. Go ahead, Julie.
Hi, my name is Julie Lewis. I live in Adams County. I have a father in a memory care facility, and I have a father-in-law in a nursing home. And I, like you, Jill, I found this group, and it was just a sense of relief for me to know that all of my thoughts and feelings were point, that we need to do something. I just can't, I just still to this day cannot believe that this is happening to our loved ones in these facilities. So I'm just glad to be a part of this group, and it's just a sense of relief for me to be with you guys.
Kathy?
Hi, my name's Kathy, and I have a mom in assisted living, and I'm grateful for everything this group is trying to do.
Jennifer?
My name is Jennifer Jensen. I actually live in Ann Arbor, Michigan. My parents are in assisted living in Long Grove in Lake County. My mom and dad are there in the same room together. My dad has moderate dementia and doesn't understand why I can't come up to the room.
Tricia?
Hi, I'm Tricia Fisk. I have in-laws that are in assisted living, supported living in Lake County and Lake Zurich. And I'm just really, like all you guys, just trying to get in there because I was one of the caregivers to help them through this. And then all of a sudden I can't get in there anymore. And so this group has been a great comfort, and I'm right with you on everything that you guys are saying. And like last night, my father-in-law fell and I couldn't do anything about it. Luckily, he is on hospice, so the hospice nurse was able to go over there and let me know what was going on. Again, it's just, if I could have just gone over there just to see that he was okay, and I couldn't. It's heartbreaking. So And you guys are a great comfort too.
Stephen?
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Steve Maxwell. I'm the regional ombudsman for PSA 06, which is in West Central Illinois. I cover Hancock, Adams, Pike, Calhoun, Brown, and Schuyler counties.
Bruce?
Yeah, I'm Bruce Carmona. I live in a nursing home. I'm a resident. To date, we aren't allowed to go outside. We don't have any visitation at all, no outside or inside visitation. I've contacted the Kelly Richards State Ombudsman. She replied to me. She was going to get me in contact with the community ombudsman, some lady named Felicia. I've tried communicating with her 2 or 3 times and she never returns my calls. So I'm kind of stuck here because we're not even allowed to go outside, and I don't think that's right. We had an outbreak about a month ago and they're still doing testing. They say that they have to do 28. The thing is, they're not following anybody's rules. They're following what the corporate office says. And so yesterday I called a director for the Western Division of the corporate office, and I told him I want something in writing as to why a reason we can't go outside and get some fresh air. Basically, over here in this facility, nobody really cares. They've been watching TV for the last 8 months, most people, except for me, which I'm very able-minded. And so I'm giving them a little push. If I push too hard, they'll probably retaliate against me. So I got to kind of watch how hard I push, so that's basically where we're at. I'm kind of frustrated. My anxiety's going up a little bit. I don't get to see my brother but once a month. And I have to make a doctor appointment to do that. In order I go to urologist, something like that. That's the only time I get to see him. At least we get to have lunch. A lot of people here don't get to see their loved ones at all. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Jan?
I have a mother in assisted living, and I can look at her through the window, and that's about it. But my aunt died alone because her daughter, my cousin, who's a nurse, wasn't even allowed to be with her until her final day, at which time she was not able to say goodbyes. My mother-in-law just passed away in a home after not seeing her family for 7 months. And again, not able to say goodbyes or us to be able to be there to hold her hand. And I've been thinking about if each person just had one family member able to go in, that would mean so much. And when I saw the news report about your rally in Springfield, I thought, yay, there's a group that's already doing this.
Lucy?
Lucy, I have my husband and my sister both in a memory care facility in Rockford.
Sue?
Hi, my mom is in a nursing home in Norridge, Illinois, which is Cook County. Yeah, we're supposed to have a visit this past Saturday that got canceled because 4 employees were careless and all at a party together and tested positive. So I've been going through a lot of emotions the last week, not just sadness, but a lot of anger that they are allowed to touch and feed and care for my mom, and I can't go in there. So I'm starting to work on plans for the holidays, and I've been told that they're going to have limited space for quarantining when people come back. So I'm beside myself, and I'm glad that this group is here. It's been a comfort to know that there's other people out there fighting with me.
Senator Dave?
Hi, Dave Severson. I represent Winnebago, Boone, and Northern DeKalb counties. I also serve on the long-term care reform and as well as the Human Services Committee. So been involved in these things for a long time, and been fighting public health since day one of this issue. And so I also have a mother who's been in long-term care, and so yeah, the science behind what they're doing has no common sense. They're not using any. This is much more political than it is science related, and it's very frustrating what they're doing, not just to not just to long-term care and assisted living facilities, but even in hospitals. It is when children are not allowed to be with their parents who are dying in the hospital. It is just it's absolutely unconscionable what they're doing.
We couldn't agree more. Amy?
Okay. Thank you for this opportunity to speak and have this meeting together, but I have two parents that are living in an assisted living, one of which has moderate dementia. And I would like to see some consistency of regularity and certain rules that are consistent throughout the board, no matter what situation people are in. We need to have at least one family, essential family member, to come into the facility at a certain amount of time to make sure that the emotional, psychological, and mental capacities are at a very comparable place. And that's all I need to say. Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak.
Terry? Okay, if at whatever point you get it on and want to join us or want to speak, let me know. Obviously, we're all saying exactly the same thing. As I was explaining to the senator first, our ultimate goal is a law that will prevent this from ever happening again. I've literally going line by line through every state's guidelines as they're coming out or as I'm having time to get through them, tearing them apart, saying, okay, this is what looks like it's working. This is what we know isn't working from what we're hearing. The concern in the end still comes down to, and it was kind of where Amy was saying, so CMS makes a guideline if your facility is covered under CMS. Then the state makes a guideline, the county makes the guideline, and then the facility makes it even stricter. So by the time we're done, there's nothing left. They're taking every opportunity for us to be with our loved ones away because they're scared, and they're scared we're gonna sue them. In the end, more than anything else, this all comes to liability, and that's what they're afraid of. Julie and myself and Peggy met with 13 officials from IDPH and IDHS on Monday. I actually presented an idea to them at the end of how to put essential caregivers in, but to change the liability on the facilities. And it would be any person that is an essential caregiver would go through whatever the facility's guidelines are for a volunteer, because then a volunteer becomes an unpaid staff, and their workman's comp, their insurance is going to accept that a whole lot easier if something was to happen versus mom, dad, or aunt or uncle. I don't even know if they liked it or not, but I think personally, to get the facilities to work with us that would be one of the best routes. I know when I spoke with my son's facility that afternoon, she's like, actually, that makes perfect sense to help make it, and they've background checked everybody then. And some real basics, which in the long run would be beneficial also. As you guys have talked to other people, I would love to hear what you've heard isn't working from other states, besides states refusing to participate anymore. Right.
Terry, could you go back just a minute to your meeting on Monday? Like, what feedback did they give you?
Very little. They did a lot of apologizing, but that was what that was. They kept telling us that, they understand we're upset. They understand why we're upset, but, this is a process and it takes a long time. And, and that's why they're working off of trying to revise Minnesota's plans. Nobody would ever explain to us why they won't follow CMS's guidelines. And obviously, CMS doesn't cover memory care or assisted living or whatever, but they could just as easily say every facility in the state is going to follow CMS guidelines.
Okay.
They're choosing not to. Yesterday, they released that any facility that falls under CMS guidelines can temporarily follow them.
Okay. Is that in writing? Was that in a memo or anything like
No, but if you go to ICH.
Yeah, I saw that video chat, but
Right.
I guess I'm wondering if
know it exists. Stephen, have you seen it come out anywhere?
Sorry, have you seen what?
Have you seen a memo or anything come out from the state or anywhere about what was on that Facebook Live yesterday?
Mm-mm.
Okay. I mean, like I said, I know my son's facility, when I talked to the director, she was aware, but she might have been aware also just from the Facebook Live. And I don't know exactly.
Okay.
And even that's the problem. The state doesn't communicate from their level down to the county, down to the facilities, and or even to the ombudsman, who are the middle person. You know, they're there to help us negotiate and work out for whatever's best for both parties.
Harry, does Senator Severson have any information he'd like to give us or any idea of what we should do?
Well, a couple things. As you know, the governor, even though we disagree, believes he has executive order ability, that he can do anything he wants in the state at any time he wants. So he can change any rule. He can implement anything he wants at any point. So the fact that some of these things aren't being done is disappointing, because he has no problem with micromanaging down to every other business and every other rule. The liability is a huge concern. There was a very easy fix that all we had to do is just give liability protection to facilities. And again, the department and the governor refused to support giving that kind of protection. I think it just goes to the fact that, you know, the trial lawyers drive so much of Illinois and control it, they're just unwilling to give the basic protections. And we've already seen tens, if not hundreds, of lawsuits already being filed. So this is going to be a Christmas present for trial lawyers this year with what they're going to be doing. So you can understand that these facilities facing hundreds of thousands of dollars in liability claims are concerned. So an easy fix would have been a simple governor executive order, or allowing the legislature to implement a simple vote to give that protection, that as long as a home is implementing the normal standards of care, they should be protected. And if family members are willing to sign waivers, family members know what's best for their own loved ones, and they should be allowed to do it. So it's very disappointing that we know these are some easy fixes. It's interesting, at the same time, they won't let you into the homes. They let these contract contract tracers that go from home to home, interviewing people, and they're not being tested as they go from facility to facility, and yet they're allowed into these facilities. So, as someone mentioned earlier, there's clearly just double standards, with the department not wanting to follow their own rules, but then having you follow those overly restrictive rules. So we meet regularly with other legislators trying to build support, but again, there's just so much pressure from Springfield on legislators not to speak up or not to try to take action. So it becomes very frustrating.
Would it be helpful to you if, as I'm going through all the other state guidelines of what isn't working, if I was sending those emailing those to you?
It doesn't hurt to tell us, to give us the information of what isn't working.
Okay.
The issue is whether or not the department has any interest in addressing any of those issues. Remember, we had to put so much pressure on the state. Long-term care facilities were the last facilities to get the PPE or any of the protections that they needed, because the state just withheld getting them what they needed to even protect their residents. So it from day one, it's been misplaced priorities and focusing all their efforts on things that that aren't really the problem. They're majoring on the minors.
Okay.
So, but anything you could do would help. Obviously, putting pressure on legislators, especially holding them accountable for liability protection. You need to ask your legislators, are they supportive of liability protection, and have them put it in writing, because they'll say it to your face, and then they'll turn around 5 minutes later and tell the governor they're with them. So you need to ask legislators to put it in writing that they will support, protections to allow people to see their loved ones, and make them sign those things.
So the other issue, in at least my opinion, also Terry Bryant's when she was with us the other day, is that essentially Dr. Zike is AWOL when it comes to this.
Yep.
You email her and you get an autoresponder, and you get the same exact one every day for the last 6 months, because I have plenty of them to prove that. It tells you to email other people in her office and you don't hear back from them. So even trying to, what should be the most logical, go through public health, is absolutely unattainable. You can't even get most of the local health departments to return a phone call, let alone going to the state level.
No, she is, I think she's sincere. She's just sincerely wrong. She's way over her head. She doesn't understand this issue, and it's just very reactive in the things that she's doing, and it's disappointing that that the governor, is not, and you hate to be political, but I think a lot of this is going to change November 4th, and you'll see a lot of things changing. But so I think she's sincere, but she really doesn't grasp the issues, and she's reading from a theory from a textbook from educators who could never make it in the private world, and that's where she won't listen to reason. I've been on hours of phone calls with her in our committee, and she just doesn't listen or take any suggestions or guidance, and that's very frustrating.
I would agree, especially even like when you said, they're letting contract tracers in, they're letting student nurses, interns, all these other people in the facilities. The number of people that are entering a facility that have no connection, that don't work there or have no connection to a resident is ridiculous, that we can't go in.
Yep.
So obviously we're working with the state, with our elected officials. Hopefully we can get a bill and get a law passed to stop all of this, but that takes time. Suing, first of all, is expensive because we've already checked with an attorney. It's expensive, and it also will take time. Honestly, all of our best option is filing civil rights complaints against the state, against the county, against CMS. And I'll be honest, I'm telling everybody, don't do it against your facility. This is not their fault. Their hands are tied before it even gets to them. But if the more OCR complaints that are filed, the better we have of them looking at it and doing something. and making a change. The one person that I know that filed before I did, it was dealing with the pediatric setting, and they made some changes and let her in. So she dropped the complaint instead of going forward. Mine's sitting at about 5 to 6 weeks now, and they say it takes about 3 months for him to get back to you. I strongly suggest everyone does one for their loved one. You could do them on behalf of them. I will help you with the information. It's very easy, but I don't know how else that we get a permanent solution. And if that came from the OCR, it would help every facility in the United States.
How do
Clearly, any kind, filing any kind of thing you can file, but you need to make sure the media is aware of it when you do file a complaint. Again, it's the only way these rules are going to change is political, and so the more pressure that gets put on because of the media and legislators putting pressure on is the only way to get to the governor to make some of these changes. So each time someone files a complaint, they need to make sure that the media is well aware of it, and then again, I would get to legislators and demand that they put it in writing that they oppose these things that are going on, because then you can use that when you're meeting with the department that you're not acting alone. The legislators are with you on it. But that's the only way this is going to work. They're only going to listen to polls, and the more questions the media asks, the more that they'll back down.
And I'm actually waiting for TV out of St. Louis to get back with me about a possible interview. And I very much have asked that they go at this from the civil rights angle.
Yeah, that and equal protection under the law. They're setting different requirements for different people without any scientific reasoning behind that. So that falls under the Equal Protection Act. And so you may want to be, even when you're talking to your lawyers, look at falling under the Equal Protection Act.
Okay.
Now, how do we get this out in the public? Because unless people know someone that has someone in long-term care facilities, or you do yourself, people are not aware that we are still not in. And the media has not.
If you file a complaint or you write a letter to the governor letting him know where that you're angry, and all you have to do is copy in or send a copy of that to your newspaper and your TV stations. Trust me, there's a lot of slow news days, and they've got to come up with news stories to do at 5 and 6 and 10, and good human interest stories like this. A lot of these stations like to eat that stuff up. So I would just copy them in, and along with the complaint, and you might be surprised how quickly some of those will pick it up. Especially if you get two in the same area. If a newsroom gets 2 letters as opposed to 1, they think that itself is a overwhelming issue, and so they'll jump on that right away.
That's actually a great idea. Like I said, hopefully the TV station St. Louis they're shooting for the end of next week, hopefully, if other news doesn't bump me. And the radio station that did the long interview with me, which is actually what got us most of the attention with the legislators we have now helping us. He's actually willing to go back and do a second one also, doing it off the civil rights. Maybe we look at getting trying to look where people live and let's pair 2 or 3 of us up together and do this as a project that, like, Fran and I are literally, we're the exception. We're a block and a half from each other. But it won't be hard for us to find somebody else in our area. Especially, our children are both in facilities. Same thing with everybody else, especially you guys that are up in Cooks County in that area. The more people we could tag together that are going to do this and plan it out, that everyone works on it for so many days, it all gets sent together, separately but together.
Yep.
Bombardment.
And you need to do it multiple times because I could tell you over my years in Springfield, one of the things that the leaders in Springfield always say, hey, it's one day hit in the newspaper and tomorrow it's forgotten. And so they don't mind a bad story as long as it's just a one-day story, because people will forget. I'm guessing most of you probably don't even know what the headlines were in yesterday's paper, let alone, a story about this on page 2. So if it's not something that is a constant, legislators don't care.
Okay.
Dave, this is Tammy. I met with Mike Murphy here in Springfield last week, and he was in favor of, working towards a law like we had talked about. But what he told me was that the soonest it probably would be survivable would be if it was in the session, like at the first of the year, because the veto session is like kind of consumed with some other things. Do you agree with that? Like that because we know it's not an immediate answer, but it's, let's face it, we hopefully have a vaccine by the spring. So,
changing the law, the soonest it would be done would be late spring. So you're talking about June or July of next year. And you have no idea how it's going to be watered down. And the problem is, no matter what you put into a law, the governor can declare an emergency and he can change any one of those things anytime he wants. So even if we had a law in place right now, chances are it would not have given you the protection you think that the law would give you. So it really comes down to putting the pressure on the governor to do the right thing by his executive order authority. Now, I don't agree that a governor should be a dictator, but since he is going to be the dictator, then let him dictate and make these changes. He could do that literally tomorrow if he wanted to do that. But again, he's getting more accolades from trial lawyers than he's hearing from family members. And so if the pressure stays on, then I think there's more likelihood that that he'll realize the impact of what he's doing, and could easily change these guidelines very quickly, and you won't have to wait till next June. Even if a vaccine comes out, we don't know how good it's going to be, and look, we still have flu outbreaks in facilities that cause things to shut down. So, just having a vaccine clearly doesn't mean that it's going to solve this problem.
Yeah. Well, that's disappointing, not surprising, but it's just good to be honest about where we're at with all this.
So following that theory, then, if it would take until next summer to get a law, I understand that. How have some of these other states managed to get things pushed through so quickly? And are we asking for the wrong thing at the moment?
Well, other states aren't set up quite like we are. Legislatively, we could fix this. Again, all the governor would have to do is, if he didn't want to do it by executive order, the governor could just call the legislature in tomorrow. We could go down and we could vote on something Friday or Saturday, and it would be in place.
That's what
but Speaker Madigan and the governor has said, we're not going to allow the legislature to meet until end of November, and then we're only going to allow you to meet for 3 days, and then you're going to have to wait till February. So we can do it, but under Illinois rules, the governor and the speaker decide when the legislature can meet. Other states, they've had emergency meetings with their legislature. They've implemented the rules they needed to do to do the common sense things, and you can get that done in a day or two. But here again, they've blocked it. You probably read in the media. The speaker has said no one's going to get together until
November
the
7th.
last 2 days of November, and I think the first day of December. That's it.
That's really, I'm sorry, but that's just such bullshit, because
No, it is.
it should, I guess my analogy, I always compare it, and no disrespect intended, but if I was a pharmacist for 30 years in a hospital, if I had a boss that kept me from saving a patient's life, and I just said, well, that's what the boss said, and didn't do it, that would be my responsibility. And I don't understand how the legislature, just by sheer number, cannot do something about that. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense in my world. And I don't mean to offend you, but
No, you're, trust me,
reality.
it's very frustrating, but they pass. So one party has the control right now, and they implement the rules. Now, if in the Senate, a little bit different than the House, in the Senate, if there were 30 members that that demanded that we get together, then the Senate would have to get together. But the majority of those senators right now will not sign a letter that's not in line with the governor, so they won't sign it. And so the handful of us that have talked about implementing these changes, we don't have the enough to call for a session. And even if we could get the Senate there, the speaker, under his rules, he's the only one that can decide if the House meets or not. And he has said the House is not going to meet. So even if the Senate met and we passed something, if the House isn't there to pass it and the governor won't sign it, it ends up being meaningless. That's why, unfortunately, the focus right now has just got to be on the governor, by his executive authority, to make some of these simple modifications that can still protect families, still protect facilities, but allow loved ones to see their family and prevent people from having to die all by themselves.
Is there a way to contact the governor other than the only thing I have found is DPH.sick, and I have gotten responses, but that's his team. Who knows if he sees any of it?
I don't know. Maybe you can go to Lake Geneva to his house and catch him or something.
We should surround his
No.
house 6 feet apart. And
No, the governor he's got a legislative office, so you could write, you could address it to the governor's office, whether it's in Springfield or Chicago, and his staff catches that every day. So you could be clearly writing. Now, whether they respond or not is a different story, but you can clearly do that, and or you can call the governor's office and leave a message. And again, they're if they get inundated with lots of calls, they'll respond. But I can tell you they'll respond quicker when they get a call from a reporter, after the reporter has talked to you, and then they call the governor's office. Those kinds of calls, their office keeps track of as well. So you can do it, certainly do it 2 ways.
So do you happen to know any media people that are easier to be flexible than others? Because but between Julie Lewis and myself, we have no problem calling anybody. We just need to
Yeah.
know, we just need a direct name.
I don't know. I don't know all the reporters in each of those areas, but when you have legislators that you work with, certainly, Jill Tracy, for example, she would know every one of the key legislators in that in that area. So the legislators that you know in those particular areas, they would have all the contacts and emails and phone numbers that you needed. Otherwise, you can just call the newspaper or a TV station and just ask for the newsroom.
Yep. So let me ask this another way then. And this is just me thinking outside of a box a little bit. If we, as caregivers for compromise, put together a statement or press release type thing, would it be possible to have legislators issue a press release saying, we're here to support them, we need help? You know, if you guys do a press release, kind of helped back us up, is there any way to maybe to work something like that?
Sure. I think if there was a statement of what you were looking to do, that's something that we could certainly join in and say this is common sense and we support this. However, during a political season like we're in right now,
I know
things that come out from us are deemed as political, even though people like myself, I'm not up for election, but the media deems it as political. When it comes from a family member, now it becomes a human interest story, and these news people, they love human interest stories because that gives them the potential chance of winning some award by uncovering or doing something that's a human interest story. So to them, sometimes that spin actually can work better than the than the political side.
We have somebody, I don't know who made it, Fran made it, or maybe Carrie, you made it, that call to action document that's on the Facebook page. Is that something, Senator, that you would be willing to sign? You said for us to get our legislatures to sign it. Do you think that would be a good, I mean, it's already created, so.
Yeah, you could send it to me or make sure I could pull it up to look at it and then and read it over. But I'm sure that's something that some of us could jump in and sign on it. But question is, does it call for an actual a resolution plan and a time frame for that?
Oh, we can go in and modify that.
Yeah. I mean, we could modify it. It could be modified a little bit, even maybe to include something. I don't think it includes anything about the liability protection you mentioned, but you just had said earlier to get something signed from the legislature. I think it would be easier to get something signed if you provide them with what to sign rather than try to ask them to create something every time.
Oh yeah, no, that's right.
So it would just be much easier.
No, having them saying that you're going to sign this, and if you don't sign it, we're going to make sure all of our families know that. But I think if the liability protection issue, getting that worded right and having that on there is going to be crucial, because that's going to help certainly these facilities feel more comfortable with what's going on, because there is obviously a huge concern that
So let me ask
have.
you, so we know we're understanding liability protection right. It would be that as long as the facility is in compliance, they're following the safety guidelines and safety protocols, that they couldn't get sued over COVID or something. But if they are found to be neglectful or abusive or anything else, they would still be on the hook. Is that correct?
Yeah, no, I'm not a lawyer, but Jill Tracy would be a good one to go to, not only because she's a lawyer, but the governor, by executive order, the first 30 days, he implemented the liability protection for everybody. Then he yanked it after 30 days when the trial lawyers got to him. So the language is already there. He's already done it before. And so Jill could help you get that wording of what the governor did originally to give that protection. So
Okay.
check with her. You don't have to reinvent the wheel because, like I said, the governor's already done it. He just yanked it because of the trial lawyers. And so this would be a good, we just get that same wording and say, Governor, you did this once because you wanted to protect facilities who are doing the right thing. So let's just do the same thing, extend that again for another 90 days or extend it until, the legislature can meet to address it legislatively. But Jill would be a good resource because, like I said, I know in some of our meetings, she's talked about that. And again, as a lawyer, she was much more familiar with how the language all works. And she would be a good resource for that.
Okay. We so appreciate your time.
Yeah, very much so.
Every
Yeah.
time
Thank you very much.
a legislator joins us, we're learning something different, which is helping us move forward. Even the fact that now multiple of legislators have said, no, they agree at this point we need to start, using the Office of Civil Rights of filing the complaints and all the rest, because we're not getting anywhere any other way at the moment too.
Yeah.
So I think taking a combination of things that you've said and putting them together, especially if we can get teams of us working together on it in areas, we might actually be able to get somewhere to get our loved ones out of quote unquote prison before the holidays. Because
the problem with filing with some of those state,
I know,
human rights departments, you have to remember, those people are all appointed and funded by the governor. So they're not going to buck the governor. And two, they're going to say that, they're months and months behind in their work. So you're not going to get, unfortunately, a whole lot of help from them, which is sad. We give them a lot of money to be independent and to do this job. But I can tell you, passing legislation by next June is probably going to be quicker than the Department of Human Rights is going to act on some of these things.
okay. Well, I think it's,
But you do everything. That's why you attack it from multiple fronts. You do the media, you do the legislators, you do filing complaints, you work through these different state agencies. You do all those things, then one of those is going to work, or it just helps keep the pressure on the administration, the more fronts that you're coming at. So I wouldn't not continue to approach each one of those issues you've talked about.
okay, that would be my plan. Okay, you gave us a lot to think about, and we are at real shy of just the 1 hour mark, and we're trying to be mindful of people's time. So if anybody does need to step out and drop off, we understand that too.
Before we
Sure.
go, can I change the subject a little bit? Last week, somebody mentioned a family council and they had like a Zoom meeting on a regular basis. I've been trying this week to get the facility to just, I don't know, kind of understand, I guess, the perspective. I feel like they have done nothing in terms of communication for family. It's as if they don't realize that we have lost that casual conversation in the hallway with the caregiver, or just being by observation in the facility to see what's going on, and they're not really communicating anything. And so I was just looking for other ideas of what maybe other people have. You know, are you feeling like you're getting a back and forth conversation with your facility? Or if I ask questions, they'll answer them. But there's no, my mom was even a new admission during this whole thing, and nobody, if I hadn't called them, nobody would have ever called me to tell me that she even
Right.
got there from the mystery van that picked her up at the hospital, you know?
I have talked the lack of communication with the owner of the facility, with senior housing management, and then you get a little bit, and the facility has, I mean, I was there every day before. And now I've said that, but I don't think the ones who really need to make the changes understand. I was upset and told them that in the middle of this, the manager left. They made the business manager and business manager, and took out the marketing and made a separate marketing position. So in the middle of all this, they hired someone whose pretty much sole purpose is to keep the facility full with a waiting list. And I told them, I says, I really don't understand. You need to communicate with families at this point in time. But it's money, the bottom line.
Mm-hmm. So Stephen and I have had a conversation about this. He gave me information about a online family council that Pennsylvania has. I think it was Pennsylvania. For any of us that want to, that we can dial into and listen. They meet on Tuesdays. They didn't have one this week. I have actually approached Stephen about wanting to get with the director of all the ombudsmen for the state and trying to put a statewide family council in place, based off of starting with us.
Yes, because one of my frustrations was that I knew people going in and out that visited ones regularly, but I only knew them going in and out. I didn't have ways to contact them. And I think to contact the ombudsman and start a family council within the facilities and also a state council. So if something like this comes up, we're already organized, because that was part of it too. I found this just out of frustration, Googling, support or who's whatever. I forget what I Googled, and caregivers for compromise came up. And I think we need to push for more information for facilities to give when they admit someone, for family members to have an organization to contact, to know you have an ombudsman, you have all these elder care councils or whatever that I was not aware of.
I think my facility gave it to my mom, which of course, she has paper. If she has papers, of course, we haven't been in there, be able to be in there. And in her, she's got a little bit of dementia. She wouldn't even know what they were saying anyway. So, but I have not been successful in reaching an ombudsman for Sangamon County. I've emailed, I've voicemailed, and I find that really disappointing that, that's supposed to be your person. And I guess this whole working from home makes completing your work just not so important. I don't know.
Tammy, on the caregivers Facebook page, if you go into the files, there's a list of every ombudsman in the state of Illinois, including the director and whatever the other people are. Stephen, what's the other?
I did the Sangamon County one, and I also did the person, like another person, like more of a senior person to that. And I'm still not getting anywhere. Now the senior person, I only did one email, but I didn't get a response to it. So
Kelly Richards is the state ombudsman is the word you're looking for, Carrie.
Thank you.
I know, so broadly speaking, and I was talking with Bruce about this a little bit too. Our timeline for a response, if there's a abuse situation where the person is potentially in danger, our response time is 3 days. We're not emergency responders, so it's there's a little bit of a delay there. If there's maybe like a financial exploitation situation, our response timeline is 7 days, and anything else is going to be within 30 days. Now, when I say that, that 30 days, that's the maximum that you're going to see. If I don't know what the Springfield office, the Springfield regional office, I don't know what their caseload looks like right now. I know I've got a pretty decent caseload myself, so I'm not immediately returning calls all the time. So I don't know, Tammy, when you reached out to Springfield, but
Yeah, it's been the first email I sent was probably 2.5 weeks ago. The second was a week ago. In between there was a voicemail, and the email that I sent to the person that was supposed to be senior to the county, like the regional person or something.
Okay.
And really probably 2.5, 3 weeks ago, I sent to just like a generic, it's under something called iCare here in this region. And I sent it to the iCare like general email and got no response of that either. So I feel like, at least I did get one call back that was just a voicemail that gave me like a direct email to the Sangamon County guy, but then of course he hasn't answered that. And so I did put in the email what it was about, which I guess wouldn't fall under, maybe I should have left. My voicemail was more generic about, I just needed to talk to you about a problem, which is probably why he left me a voicemail back with the email, because he didn't know if it was anything really serious.
Yeah, so I would recommend trying to reach out again by either phone or email.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you're still not getting a response or feel like it's taking too much time, reach out to either Megan over there, she's the regional, or Kelly Richards, who's the state ombudsman.
Okay, yeah, I think Megan was who I sent to that I didn't hear a response from. And that was probably about 2 weeks ago, at least 2 weeks ago, probably 2.5. So, but I'll try again. It's disappointing, but I'll try again.
I had a really good experience with my ombudsman. I live in Will County. I spoke to the person who was the head, and she was just lovely and helpful. And then I had a call back from the person who's just for my facility. I was trying to get my mom to go out and get to have them have someone cut her hair. And it ended up, she was too upset and nervous about this happening, whether she's afraid of getting it. But I just couldn't say enough for how helpful they were. And I'm grateful for this group because I never knew there was such a thing as an ombudsman. And so just getting that knowledge out has been really helpful.
And sometime in the next couple weeks, I need to get back with Stephen to make sure we do it on his schedule. We're gonna do a meeting on a Thursday that he will actually explain to people what an ombudsman is, what they do, what they can and can't do, because there's a lot they can't do either, which I didn't realize where the limitations fell. And obviously when we do that, besides just the Illinois page, we can invite others, because this is a problem everywhere that people don't know what the ombudsmen are, what they do, and how to get help.
Mm-hmm.
I invited Kelly Richards, but I don't think she's going to attend. Hey, when we go talk about the governor, why can't we just go straight up the middle and go directly to him? I mean, if he's the guy that holds all the answers or something like that, and we're trying to get to him, I mean, there's got to be a way to bug the crap out of him, like the constituent's office or something like that. There's got to be a way to go directly to him and talk. He's got an obligation to talk to the public. he's a elected official. Okay. So I don't know why. I'm going to try to get hold of him through the constituent's office and some other contacts I have. Maybe not talk directly to him, but if you want to set up a meeting with him, would that help out?
Oh my God. If somebody can get him to the table, that's all I need. I just, anything that I've sent or emailed, or, you know, when you go on their webpage and, ooh, fill this out, we'll get back to you. Leave a voicemail, we'll get back to you. I'm still waiting for them to get back to me from like March and April. And come on, I'm probably a little more persistent than the average bear.
Yeah, I'm pretty aggressive when it comes to that kind of stuff. And I always look at every angle to find my way in to everywhere I can. I even filled out a form, become a volunteer ombudsman. I haven't heard nothing from that yet, but I'm so into this advocacy stuff. And since I've been in this nursing home, you don't really realize what it's like unless you're in here. You can talk on the other side about getting in, but these facilities, they just like my facility, they avoid talking to me about when we can go outside. They had done it, you know, a little bit. I mean, I'm just asking to go out and sit in the sun. You know, I'm not asking for them to open up for indoor visitation because, you know, I mean, even though a lot of people here don't see their loved ones, I get to see my brother once a month or so, you know, I mean, talk to him when I want. So it's not that bad because, you know, but other people here, you know, they're finally realizing that we're in a prison.
You need to call some newspapers and the different news things, like the senator said, because your voice might be heard.
But Bruce, I'll get, you and I will talk later. I can kind of help you in that direction.
Okay. I'll do. I feel like I got to watch my back a little bit because if I live here right now, trying to get out. But Kenneth Young Center, I've contacted them like 4 or 5 times, and they still haven't returned my calls, doing assessment. And I'm getting pretty upset about that right now. So I'm gonna go back to the aging board and talk to them and see what I can get done. But yeah, I'm pretty aggressive when it comes to trying to get a hold of somebody. For example, Medicaid wasn't approved. Took 10 months for Medicaid to approve my Medicaid. Finally, I got a hold of the governor's office, and they came down on Medicaid real hard. And Medicaid ended up calling me and apologizing and all kinds of stuff, you know. So I feel like the constituent's office is probably a good way to start going through there. So I'm going to try and go through there and see if I can get a meeting or at least some kind of response.
So now that we're about 10 after 10, there was some talk about redoing the call to action or kind of embellishing it a little bit or reviewing it to see if it's something we could get the legislators to sign. I'd be glad to do that unless somebody else feels like they'd be better at it. But we could just sort of coordinate that.
And Tammy, I also know Jill, so if you want to work on it and then we can communicate and I can give you my email and I can get it to Jill, or I can give you Jill's email as well.
Well, and even if you guys work on it a little bit together,
Yeah.
and look at it before it goes.
Yeah, yeah.
And you know,
that would be helpful. Yeah, that'd be helpful if you could get to work with Jill. I mean, she's just a wonderful person.
Right.
And work with her on it, and then add that language into it. And then when that's done, then send that out to you know, legislators and ask them to sign on to it. And then give them a short period of time. Tell them if you want to respond it back in, you know, 3 days or something, and send it with a place on there that's simple enough they could just sign the bottom of it and date
it back to you.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, we can easily work on that, and just make sure, you know, however you started, Tammy, is great. And then go to Julie next with it.
Okay.
She really does an incredible job of making sure things read and look right, because I'm not gonna lie to anybody, I'm extremely dyslexic. I fake it pretty well, but
You do fine.
it still takes other people doing this.
Yeah. So along the same lines, I know Fran, I think it was Fran, was working on like getting a list of everybody on the call in that form we filled out. Is that something we could put on the Facebook page in those documents, even if it's still like under development? At least we'd have, you know, a start that we all can see that. I feel like the whole group we're more effective if the entire group participates in
No,
what
I
we're
agree.
doing.
The only problem is when I created the form, I just said that it would be kept private. So I just have, I mean, I could just literally send an email out to everyone that submitted the forms and say, okay, may I share your email with the group? And once I get that permission, then I can share it.
Okay, that works.
Yep.
Okay,
Good.
I gotta go, guys. So we'll be in
Thanks,
touch.
everyone.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ray.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, have a good day.
Good luck, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.